Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room, said nothing, and still felt like everyone's eyes were on you? Not because you were loud, not because you were trying, but because your silence was louder than their noise. If that sounds familiar, then there's something about you no one has told you until now. You're not like them. You don't crave the spotlight. You don't beg for validation. And yet somehow people can't ignore you. They don't know why, but they feel it. And the truth is, you might be carrying a kind of power that even you haven't fully realized yet. Because what you are is Sigma, and that changes everything. 1. The quiet outsider. Have you ever felt like you don't belong, even when you're surrounded by people? You're sitting in a classroom, a meeting, or a crowded cafe, and while everyone else seems to slip easily into the flow of chatter, you're the one who hangs back. You're not awkward. You're not shy. You're just watching, observing, almost like you're studying the rhythm of the room instead of playing along with it. And yet, despite your silence, people notice you. They sense something about you that they can't explain, and sometimes they don't like it. That's the quiet weight you carry as a Sigma male. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's not the booming charisma of the alpha or the easy compliance of the beta. It's something else, a gravitational pull that comes from choosing your own orbit. And here's the strange part. Half the time, you don't even notice it. You're just being yourself, but the room feels it. That's the paradox of being the outsider. You're not chasing anyone. You're not demanding to be seen. But in that very absence of effort, people see you more. You carry a silence that's louder than most people's noise. And maybe deep down, you've always known this. Maybe you felt like the world is too scripted, too eager to fit people into neat categories. And so, without even trying, you stepped outside of it. You became the quiet observer, the one who doesn't play by the rules but doesn't fight them loudly either. The one who walks away from the crowd, not because you can't join, but because you don't need to. And that power? It unsettles people. It confuses them. Sometimes it even isolates you. But it also makes you rare. And that rarity is the beginning of everything. 2. The paradox of Sigma energy. Here's where it gets tricky. Being a Sigma male feels like living inside a paradox. On one hand, you're independent. You don't need the validation of a group to feel secure. You're comfortable with solitude, sometimes even craving it. On the other hand, that very independence can create friction with the world around you. People can't categorize you, and so they misinterpret you. Take the so-called hierarchy. The alpha is bold, commanding, the natural leader. The beta is loyal, agreeable, content to follow. Society loves these categories because they're predictable. But where do you fit in? Nowhere. You don't compete for the spotlight, but you also don't submit. You don't dominate, but you don't defer. You move sideways. You exist outside of the ladder entirely. And that confuses people. Here's the paradox. Your refusal to play the game actually makes you stronger than those who obsess over it. Yet at the same time, it makes you look like a threat. People project their insecurities onto you. They whisper, "He's arrogant," or "He thinks he's too good for us," when in reality, you're just existing on your own terms. This paradox doesn't just show up socially, it shows up in relationships. Some partners feel drawn to your independence, but others feel frustrated by it. They can't own you the way they want to, and so they grow anxious. You're not the clingy type, but you're also not cold. You live in that tension, close enough to connect, distant enough to remain free. And that balance can be magnetic, but it can also be misunderstood. The danger here is that you start to internalize this misunderstanding. You begin to wonder, maybe I really am broken. Maybe I'm too different. And that thought, that creeping suspicion, can eat away at you if you let it. But let me tell you the truth that most people will never say. You're not broken. You're blueprint. You're not a mistake in the system. You're the exception that proves the system is incomplete. And when you finally realize that, when you stop seeing your paradox as a weakness and start seeing it as a design, you step into the kind of power no alpha or beta could ever touch. 3. Silence as power. Think about silence for a moment. Most people hate it. They rush to fill it with noise, chatter, music, notifications, endless scrolling. Silence makes them uncomfortable because it forces them to hear their own thoughts. But for you, silence isn't emptiness. It's energy. It's your element. There's a reason people notice you even when you don't speak. There's a reason your stillness makes others nervous. It's because silence holds weight, and you, as a Sigma, carry that weight with you everywhere you go. I once knew a guy, let's call him Jake. He was the loudest in every room, cracking jokes, raising his voice, making sure everyone knew he was there. People loved him on the surface. But here's the thing, whenever I entered the room, he'd change. He'd crack a nervous joke at my expense, almost like he needed to prove himself against me. And I couldn't understand it at first. I wasn't competing. I wasn't even talking. But then I realized my silence was louder than his noise. That's what people don't get. They think power comes from volume, from force, from commanding attention. But real power, it comes from presence, from not needing to prove yourself, from being so comfortable in your own stillness that other people's noise just bounces off of you. But here's the danger. Silence can cut both ways. Left empty, it becomes isolation. It becomes wasted potential. But when filled with intention, silence becomes a forge, a place where ideas, skills, and strength are built without distraction. So the question you have to ask yourself is this: what are you doing with your silence? Is it a prison or is it a weapon? Because one will drain you and the other will make you unstoppable. The fork in the road. Every Sigma male eventually arrives at a fork in the road. On one side is distraction, endless scrolling, gaming, numbing yourself with temporary pleasure. You use your solitude to escape instead of create. You waste the silence that could have been sacred. And 5 years later, you wonder why nothing in your life has changed. On the other side is mastery, using your solitude as fuel, sharpening your mind, your skills, your craft, building in the dark while everyone else performs in the light. You use the silence not as an escape, but as a workshop. And when you emerge, you don't need to shout about what you built. The results speak for you. History is full of men who chose this second path. Nikola Tesla, working alone in his lab while others dismissed him. Miyamoto Musashi, training in solitude until he became one of the greatest swordsmen in history. Even Nietzsche, scribbling down thoughts in isolation that would later shake philosophy to its core. These men weren't chasing applause. They weren't playing by society's rules. They were building something that outlasted noise. And that's the road in front of you. Waste your Sigma nature or wield it. Escape into distraction or embrace the silence and let it shape you. One path makes you forgettable, the other makes you inevitable. So ask yourself honestly, which fork are you on? 5. You're not broken, you're blueprint. Here's the truth no one has told you until now. You are not broken, you're blueprint. The Sigma male isn't an accident, isn't a misfit, isn't a mistake. You are the design that doesn't need the crowd to validate it. You are proof that independence can be strength, that silence can be power, that solitude can be sacred. But this isn't just a feel-good message, it's a challenge. Because being a Sigma means you carry a responsibility. The world doesn't understand you, and maybe it never will. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with the life you've been given. So when people call you arrogant, let them. When they call you distant, let them. When they misunderstand your silence, let them. Because you know the truth. You know that every second you spend outside the crowd, you're building something the crowd can't touch. And if you felt this in your bones while watching this video, if you've recognized yourself in these words, then this message was for you. Not to hype you up with empty motivation, but to remind you of what you already knew deep down. You're not broken, you're blueprint. And if you want more reminders like this, real, raw, not sugar-coated, then stick around. Subscribe if you haven't already, not because you need a crowd, but because sometimes even Sigma males need to know they're not walking alone. Because in the end, the most powerful voice is the one that doesn't need to shout. You made it all the way here, which already tells me something about you. Most people click away the moment things get quiet, but you didn't. You stayed, you listened, and that alone says you're built different. Now here's the part most creators would say, smash that like button. But that's not why I'm here. If you found something real in these words, something you don't normally hear, then stick around. Not for me, for you, because this channel isn't about building a crowd. It's about finding the rare ones who walk their own path. So if you're ready for more, subscribe. If not, take the silence with you. Use it. Make it yours. Because remember, the Sigma doesn't need applause. He just needs the courage to keep walking.